My mother-in-law looked at me across the dinner table and said 7 words I still hear in my sleep. "You will never be good enough for my son." It was a Sunday afternoon. We were at her house in Houston. The whole family was there. Javier sat right next to me. His 3 brothers were across the table, their wives, their children, everyone. No one said a word. Not Javier, not his brothers, not their wives. No one. The only sound was forks on plates and my heart breaking in my chest. I was 23 years old, married for 4 years. I had crossed a border. I had given this family a grandson, and Señora Santos looked at me like I was nothing. That was the first time she said it out loud, in front of everyone. It would not be the last. She hated me for 20 years. She died before she ever apologized. But her own children did, at her funeral. Let me tell you how we got there. I need to go back to before that dinner, to the beginning. My name is Rosa Maria Santos. People call me Tia Rosa now. I'm 50 years old. I work in the kitchen of a hospital here in Houston. I've lived in this city for almost 30 years. But when I met Javier, I was just a girl from Jalisco, Mexico. I was 18 years old. He was 20. We met at a dance. He was handsome, kind. He made me laugh. We got married in 1995. I was 19. We crossed the border together in 1996. We had nothing, just each other and a dream of a better life. My son Miguel was born that same year. Javier worked construction. I cleaned houses and offices at night. We were poor, but we were building something. Then I met Señora Santos, Javier's mother, the matriarch, the queen of the family. She came to visit us in Houston when Miguel was 3 months old. I was so nervous. I cleaned our tiny apartment 3 times. I cooked her favorite dishes. I wanted her to see that I was a good wife, a good mother. It didn't matter. The first thing she said when she walked in, "This apartment is very small, Javier. How can you raise a family here?" She looked at me while she said it, like it was my fault. That week she pulled me aside in the kitchen. She said, "I know women like you. You married my son because you wanted papers. You wanted a better life. But he could have done better. He could have married a woman with education, with family, with something." I didn't know what to say. I just stood there with soap on my hands. She said, "This marriage won't last. My son will see who you really are." I was 20 years old. I had a baby in the next room. And my mother-in-law was telling me I wasn't good enough to be in her family. That was 1996, the beginning. Let me tell you something about that time, something I never forget. Miguel was 3 months old. He was so small, so perfect. He had Javier's nose and my mother's eyes. Every night I would hold him in that tiny apartment, rocking him, singing to him. "Duérmete, mi niño, duérmete, mi amor." And I would whisper promises to him. "Mijo, I'm going to give you everything, a good life, a home, everything I never had. I promise." I believed it with my whole heart. But Señora Santos, she didn't see a mother making promises. She saw a poor immigrant holding her grandson. One night she came to our apartment while Javier was at work. She said she wanted to help me with the baby. She took Miguel from my arms. She held him like he belonged to her, not to me. She said, "This baby has Santos blood, good blood. You need to raise him properly, not like they do where you come from." I wanted to take my baby back. I wanted to tell her to leave my house. But I was 20 years old, alone in a new country, scared of everything. So I just stood there and watched her hold my son like I didn't exist. That was the first time I understood she would never accept me. Señora Santos didn't hate me every day. That would have been easier. Then everyone would have seen it. No, she was smart about it. In public, she was polite. She smiled. She called me mija in front of other people. She held my children. But when no one was watching, she was different. Little comments, small cuts. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. When I cooked for family gatherings, she would taste my food and say, "It's okay, not how my mother made it, but okay." When I wore a new dress, she would say, "That's a nice color. It's brave of you to wear something so bright." When I spoke about my family in Mexico, she would sigh and say, "It must be hard coming from so little." Always with a smile, always in a way that no one else would notice, but I noticed. She told Javier's brothers that I was sending all our money to Mexico, that I was keeping Javier from his family, that I was controlling him. None of it was true, but she said it anyway. And slowly I became the outsider, the one who wasn't really part of the family, the wife who was tolerated, not welcomed. I could have handled all of that, the comments, the lies, the cold looks across the dinner table. But the worst part wasn't what she did. The worst part was what Javier didn't do. My daughter Sophia was born in 1998, my little girl. She was so beautiful. Big brown eyes, curly hair, and a voice that could be heard 3 blocks away. I remember when Sophia was 5 years old, we went to Señora Santos's house for Christmas. Sophia had made a drawing for her abuela, a family picture, all of us together, stick figures with big smiles. She ran up to Señora Santos with that paper in her little hands. "Abuela, abuela, I made this for you." Señora Santos looked at the drawing. She didn't smile. She said, "That's nice, mija. Put it on the table." Then she turned to Miguel, my son who was 7, and opened her arms wide. "Miguel, come here, my handsome boy. Let abuela give you a kiss." Sophia stood there, holding her drawing, watching her grandmother hug her brother like he was made of gold. I saw my daughter's face change. That little face, that confused, hurt little face. I walked over. I picked her up. I held her tight. "That's a beautiful drawing, mija, the most beautiful drawing in the world." But she already knew. Even at 5 years old, she knew she wasn't the favorite. And I couldn't protect her from that, just like I couldn't protect myself. I need to tell you about my husband. Javier was a good man. He worked hard. He provided for our family. He loved our children. He loved me. But he loved his mother, too. And when it came to her, he couldn't see the truth. After that dinner, the one where she said I would never be good enough, I waited until we got home. I waited until Miguel and Sophia were asleep. Then I asked him. I said, "Javier, why didn't you say anything? Why did you let her talk to me like that, in front of everyone?" He looked at me like I was the problem. He said, "Rosa, she's my mother. She didn't mean it like that. You're being too sensitive." Too sensitive. Those 2 words. He used them for 20 years. Every time his mother made a comment about my cooking, I was too sensitive. Every time she whispered something to his brothers about me, I was making problems. Every time I cried in our bedroom after a family dinner, I was overreacting. I tried to talk to him so many times. I said, "Javier, I need you to defend me. I need you to tell her to stop." He said, "I can't do that. She's my mother. I shouldn't have to choose between my wife and my mother." But here's what I learned. When you refuse to choose, you are choosing. Every time Javier stayed silent, he chose her. Every time he didn't defend me, he told me that her comfort was more important than my dignity. Every time he called me too sensitive, he told me that my pain didn't matter. I loved my husband. I loved him until the day he died. But I never forgave him for his silence. How do you survive 20 years of someone hating you? You learn to make yourself small. You learn which topics to avoid, which chairs to sit in, which rooms to leave when she enters. You learn to swallow your words, to smile when you want to scream, to cry in the bathroom with the water running so no one hears. I did all of that for 20 years. When my daughter Sophia was born, Señora Santos held her for 5 minutes and then handed her back. She said, "She looks like your side of the family." When I got my American citizenship in 2005, she said, "That doesn't make you American, you know, just legal." When Javier got promoted at work, she told everyone it was because he was so talented. When I got a better job at a hotel, she said nothing. Every Christmas, every birthday, every quinceañera, every wedding, she was there, and I was there. And we smiled at each other like actresses in a play no one else knew was happening. The hardest part was that no one believed me. I tried to tell Javier's brothers' wives. They said, "That's just how she is. She doesn't mean anything by it. You know how mothers-in-law are." I tried to tell my own sister. She said, "Rosa, you married into the family. You have to make it work. Don't create problems." Even my own mother, God rest her soul, said, "Mija, you have to respect your husband's mother. That is your duty." So I stopped telling anyone. I carried it alone. For 20 years, I was the only one who knew the truth about Señora Santos. Or so I thought. Let me tell you one more thing about those years, about my son Miguel. Miguel was always Señora Santos's favorite, her golden boy. She gave him everything, attention, praise, gifts. And you know what? I never stopped her. Some people might think, "Rosa, weren't you jealous? Didn't you want her to love Sophia the same way?" Of course I did. But here's what I understood. Miguel was innocent. He didn't ask to be the favorite. He didn't choose his grandmother's love over his sister. And I refused to poison my son against his own family, even if that family was hurting me. There was one night. Miguel was about 12 years old. We were driving home from his grandmother's house. He was quiet, too quiet. Finally, he said, "Mama, why is Abuela so mean to you sometimes?" My heart stopped. He had seen it. My boy had seen it. I wanted to tell him everything, every cruel word, every cold look, every lie she told about me. But I didn't. I said, "Mijo, your abuela loves you very much. That's what matters. Don't worry about grown-up things." He looked at me, those big eyes. He knew I was protecting him from something. He said, "Okay, Mama." And we never talked about it again, not for years. That was the cost of my silence. I protected everyone else, but no one protected me. In 2018, Senora Santos got sick, heart problems. She was 74 years old. She couldn't live alone anymore. She needed help. Javier's brothers all had excuses. Ricardo lived too far away. Eduardo worked too many hours. Tomas's wife said she couldn't handle the stress. So I did it. Every week I went to her house. I cooked for her. I cleaned. I made sure she took her medications. Javier never asked me to do it. I just did it. Maybe I thought it would change something. Maybe I thought she would finally see that I was a good person, that I loved her son, that I had been a good wife for 23 years. It changed nothing. One afternoon, I was washing her dishes. Her lunch was in the microwave. Her house was clean. I had been there for 3 hours. She was sitting in her chair in the living room. I heard her call my name. I dried my hands. I walked in. I said, "Yes, Senora?" She looked at me with those same cold eyes from 20 years before. She said, "Don't think this changes anything. I still know what you are." I stood there, soap still on my hands. I didn't say anything. I never said anything. I just went back to the kitchen and finished the dishes. But someone else heard. Javier's brother Eduardo was in the next room. He had stopped by to check on his mother. He was standing in the hallway. He heard every word. He didn't say anything that day, but he never forgot. Javier died in January 2020. Heart attack, at work. He was 49 years old. One day he went to his construction job. That night, 2 police officers knocked on my door. I became a widow at 44 years old, after 25 years of marriage. The grief almost killed me. Javier was my partner, my frustration, my love, my complicated, silent, beloved husband. At his funeral, Senora Santos sat in the front row. She cried the whole time. Her son was gone. She looked at me once, just once. She didn't say anything. I thought, maybe now she will finally see how much I loved him, how much I gave him, how I stood by him for 25 years. But no. After the funeral, she said to her friends, "At least my son is at peace now." Like I had been a burden he was finally free from. That was the last thing she ever said about me. 3 years later, in March 2023, Senora Santos died. She was 79 years old. She went to her grave believing she was right about me. She never apologized, not once, not even at the end. But something happened at her funeral that I never expected. The funeral was on a Saturday morning, beautiful day, March in Houston, sunny but not too hot. Everyone came, the whole family, old friends, people from her church. They filled the whole church. Person after person stood up to speak. They talked about what a wonderful mother she was, how devoted, how loving, how she held the family together. I sat in the 3rd row. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just listened to everyone describe a woman I had never met. After the service, we drove to the cemetery. They lowered her casket into the ground. The priest said the final prayers. People threw roses on the grave. Then everyone started to leave, walking back to their cars, going to the reception. But I stayed. I stood at the edge of her grave. I don't know why. I didn't have anything to say to her. She was gone. It was over. Then Eduardo walked up beside me, Javier's younger brother, the quiet one. We had never been close. In 25 years, I don't think we ever had a real conversation. He stood next to me. He didn't look at me. He looked at the casket in the ground. And he said, "I'm sorry, Rosa." I thought I misheard him. I said, "What?" He said, "I'm sorry for all of it." He finally looked at me. His eyes were red. He said, "I heard what she said to you when you were taking care of her. I still know what you are. I was in the hallway. I heard everything." I couldn't speak. He said, "I should have said something then. I should have said something years ago. All those dinners, all those comments, we all saw it. We all knew. But we never said anything because she was our mother." He shook his head. "That wasn't fair to you. You didn't deserve it. You were a good wife to Javier. You were good to her, even when she wasn't good to you. And none of us ever stood up for you." He wiped his eyes. "I'm sorry, Rosa. I'm sorry it took this long." Then Ricardo walked over. He heard what Eduardo said. He nodded. He said, "Rosa, I'm sorry too. She wasn't fair to you. We all knew it." Then Tomas. One by one, Javier's brothers stood with me at their mother's grave, not defending her, not making excuses, apologizing to me for 20 years of silence. I cried for the first time that whole day, not because she was gone, not because I was sad, because someone finally said, "We saw it. We know. You didn't deserve that." 20 years, and finally, I was believed. I don't hate Señora Santos. I used to think I did. For years, I carried anger in my chest like a hot stone, burning me from the inside. But standing at her grave with her sons apologizing to me, something changed. She was gone. Her hatred was in the ground with her. But I was still here, still standing, still breathing. I survived her. Not by fighting, not by yelling, not by proving I was right. I survived her by refusing to become like her. I never said a bad word about her to my children. I never poisoned Javier against his own mother. I never matched her cruelty with my own. I just kept being myself, kept cooking, kept cleaning, kept loving my husband even when he didn't defend me, kept showing up to family dinners even when I wanted to stay home. And in the end, my dignity was my proof. I didn't have receipts. I didn't have documents. I didn't have recordings of what she said to me. All I had was 20 years of consistent goodness. And finally, people saw it. My relationship with Javier's brothers is different now. They call me on holidays. They check on me. They invite me to family dinners. And now I feel like I actually belong there. Eduardo told me something last Christmas. He said, "Rosa, you're the best thing that ever happened to this family. I'm just sorry it took us so long to say it out loud." 27 years of marriage, 20 years of his mother's hatred, and finally, I'm family. That's not justice. Señora Santos never faced any consequences for how she treated me. She died believing she was right. But this is something better than justice. This is peace. I learned something in those 20 years, something I wish I had known when I was 23 years old, standing in that kitchen with soap on my hands. You cannot make someone respect you. You cannot force someone to see your worth. You cannot argue them into loving you. You cannot prove yourself enough times that they finally admit they were wrong. Some people will hate you no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, no matter how kind you are, no matter how much you sacrifice. That's not your failure. That's their limitation. Here's what I wish I could tell that 23-year-old girl. The apology you're waiting for might never come. The person who hurt you might die without ever saying they were sorry. But that doesn't mean you have to carry their hatred forever. Sometimes the closure you need doesn't come from the person who hurt you. Sometimes it comes from the people who finally see the truth. Sometimes it comes from yourself, from the quiet knowledge that you did nothing wrong. How do you fight someone your husband won't let you fight? You don't. You survive them. And you wait for the truth to outlive them. It took 20 years, but the truth came out. Standing at her grave, from her own children. And that was enough. Tell me your story in the comments. Did you have a mother-in-law who made you feel small? Did your husband stand up for you, or did he stay silent? Are you still waiting for an apology that might never come? Or maybe you're on the other side. Maybe you're the one who stayed silent when you should have spoken. Maybe you're the one who needs to apologize. I want to hear. I always want to hear. Thank you for listening to an old woman's story. If it touched your heart, share it with someone who needs it. Maybe someone who's still waiting for the truth to come out. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe. Click the bell. I'll be here. I'm always here. This is Tia Rosa from Houston, Texas, sending you love.